The first bouquet arrived on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were my double shift days at Celestine's, the kind of upscale restaurant where I spent 14 hours on my feet, where the marble floors made my ankles throb and the crystal chandeliers cast shadows that felt like judgment. I was nobody there, a ghost in a black uniform, refilling water glasses for people who never looked at my face. The flowers were waiting on the staff table when I clocked in at 5 a.m. Still dark outside, the kitchen already alive with the violent symphony of prep work, knives against cutting boards, pans clattering, the head chef barking orders in rapid French. My name was scrawled on the card in the florist's handwriting, not the sender's, for the girl who deserves to be seen. No signature. Just those 7 words that made my chest constrict in a way I couldn't name. The roses were deep crimson, almost black at the edges, their petals soft as skin. I'd never received flowers before. Not once in my 23 years of invisible existence. Someone's got an admirer, Marcus, one of the line cooks, called out with a knowing grin. I shook my head, cheeks burning, and shoved the bouquet into my locker. Probably a mistake. Wrong girl. Wrong name. The universe didn't send flowers to people like me. People who counted coins for the bus fare, who wore the same 3 outfits on rotation, who came home to a studio apartment where the radiator clanked like it was dying and the walls were so thin I could hear my neighbor's television through the night. But the next day there were more. White lilies this time, their fragrance almost obscene in its sweetness, filling the staff room with a scent that felt too pure for the greasy reality of a restaurant kitchen. Same card, same handwriting. You looked tired yesterday. Rest when you can. My hands trembled as I read it. Someone was watching me. Someone had seen me here, in this place where I was supposed to be invisible. The thought should have terrified me, and part of me registered the danger, the wrongness of anonymous attention. But another part, the part that had been starving for years, felt something else entirely: hunger. By the end of the week, the other staff members stopped teasing. The flowers kept coming. Gardenias, peonies, exotic orchids that must have cost more than my weekly paycheck. I started arriving early just to see what would be waiting, my heart a frantic thing in my chest, equal parts dread and anticipation. You need to report this, my supervisor Janet said on Friday, her face pinched with concern. This isn't normal, sweetie. This is stalking. But I didn't report it. I took each bouquet home, lined them up on my windowsill until my apartment looked like a funeral home, and I stared at those cards every night, tracing the words with my fingertip like they were scripture. Your smile is worth more than you know. The way you move through a room is poetry. I see you. 3 weeks in, I started looking for him. I studied every man who walked through Celestine's doors, searching for recognition in their eyes. Some flicker that would betray the sender, but the clientele were all the same. Wealthy, polished, so far removed from my world, they might as well have been a different species. They looked through me, past me, their conversations about mergers and summer homes in the Hamptons filling the air, while I poured their wine and cleared their plates, until him. He arrived on a Wednesday evening, and the entire restaurant seemed to shift. I felt it before I saw him, a change in atmospheric pressure, the way animals sense storms. The maitre d', who never showed deference to anyone, straightened his spine and moved with unusual speed. 2 men in dark suits entered first, their eyes scanning the room with mechanical precision, hands resting near their belts in a way that made my survival instincts scream danger. Then he walked in. Young, maybe 30, 32. Devastating in the way natural disasters are devastating, beautiful and terrifying and utterly destructive. Dark hair pushed back from a face that could have been carved from marble, sharp jaw, and eyes so dark they looked black in the candlelight. He wore a suit that probably cost more than a year of my rent, charcoal gray with a crisp white shirt open at the collar, and he moved like violence contained in expensive fabric. But it wasn't his looks that froze me in place. It was the way everyone reacted to him. The entire dining room went quiet. Not silent, but muted. Conversations dropped to whispers, silverware handled more carefully, as if noise itself might offend him. The manager materialized from his office, personally escorting the man to a private corner table, the best in the house, where he could see every entrance and exit. "That's Dante Moretti," whispered Claire, another server, her voice barely audible as we stood in the service station. Her face had gone pale. "Don't stare. Don't make eye contact. Just stay away from that section. Who is he?" She looked at me like I'd asked what oxygen was. "You really don't know? He runs half the city. The Moretti family. They're—" She trailed off, glancing nervously toward his table. "They're not people you want to notice you." My mouth went dry. Mafia. She didn't say the word, but it hung between us anyway, heavy and ominous. I should have listened. I should have stayed in my section, kept my head down, remained the ghost I'd always been. But fate, or something darker, had other plans. It was my own clumsiness that damned me. I was crossing the dining room with a tray of champagne glasses, moving between tables with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. But my ankle twisted, the marble floors, my exhausted body, the cheap shoes that were falling apart. And suddenly I was falling, the tray tilting, and I watched in horror as 6 crystal flutes arced through the air in slow motion. Directly toward his table, time fractured. I heard my own gasp, the collective intake of breath from nearby diners, and then he moved. Faster than should have been possible, he was on his feet, catching 3 glasses with impossible precision while the other 3 shattered against the floor in an explosion of crystal and champagne. The sound was deafening in the hushed restaurant, like gunshots, and I stood frozen, still holding the empty tray, my face burning with humiliation so intense I thought I might combust. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "I'm so... Look at me." His voice stopped my heart, deep, quiet, with an edge that suggested violence was always an option, not American. Italian, maybe, with just a trace of an accent that made every syllable feel deliberate. I lifted my eyes and drowned. He was looking at me the way a predator looks at prey, focused, intense, with an intelligence that felt invasive. His eyes weren't black, they were dark brown, almost amber in the candlelight, and they moved over my face like he was memorizing every feature, cataloging every detail. The 2 men in suits had moved closer, flanking him, their hands inside their jackets, but he held up one finger and they stopped. "What's your name?" he asked. "Arya." My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. Small, breakable, something flickered across his face. Recognition, satisfaction, but it was gone before I could identify it. "Arya," he repeated, and the way he said it made it sound like a different word entirely. Something precious. Claimed. "Do you always fall so beautifully?" My brain couldn't process the question. The manager was rushing over, apologizing profusely, snapping his fingers at other staff to clean up the mess, and I knew I was about to be fired. 4 months at Celestine's, my best job yet, and I'd just destroyed it by assaulting a mobster with champagne. But Dante Moretti held up his hand, silencing the manager mid-grovel. "She stays," he said, not looking away from me. "And bring me a towel. She's bleeding." I glanced down. Blood was seeping through my white shirt from where I'd pressed the tray against my ribs, a shard of glass embedded in my palm where I'd tried to catch the falling glasses. I hadn't even felt it. The adrenaline had turned everything distant and dreamlike. "I'm fine," I said automatically, taking a step back. "I'll just sit." It wasn't a request. The word carried weight, authority, the expectation of absolute obedience. My legs obeyed before my brain caught up, and suddenly I was in the chair across from him, his men forming a wall around us, and the entire restaurant was watching with barely concealed shock. He reached for my hand, the bleeding one, and I flinched, but his grip was gentle as he turned my palm up, examining the wound with clinical precision. "Luca," he said to one of his men, "get the first aid kit from their office, now." The man disappeared. "This will scar," Dante said, his thumb brushing the skin near the cut, and I felt that touch everywhere, like electricity racing through my nervous system. "You should be more careful." "I didn't mean to," I started, but he cut me off. "I know." Those dark eyes lifted to mine again. "You're exhausted. You work too much. 14-hour shifts, 6 days a week, For what? Minimum wage and tips that barely cover your rent? My blood turned to ice. How do you... I make it my business to know things. He released my hand as his man returned with the first aid kit, and Dante himself, this dangerous, powerful man who probably had people killed before breakfast, carefully cleaned my wound, his touch surprisingly gentle. You take the bus home. The 47 at 1:30 a.m. It's not safe. Terror and something else, something hot and confusing, warred in my chest. Have you been following me? He applied antiseptic with steady hands, and I hissed at the sting. Following implies I'm behind you. I prefer to think of it as ensuring your well-being. That's stalking. Is it? He wrapped gauze around my palm with expert precision, securing it with medical tape. Even if my intentions are protective. I don't need protection. A smile curved his mouth. Not kind, but not cruel either. Something in between. Something that made my stomach flip. Everyone needs protection, Kara. The question is whether they're smart enough to accept it. The manager hovered nearby, wringing his hands, clearly desperate to intervene but terrified to interrupt. Other diners had returned to their meals, but I could feel their attention, their curiosity boring into my back. The flowers, I breathed, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. They're from you. Dante finished bandaging my hand, then sat back, adjusting his cufflinks with casual elegance. Every day for the last month. You've kept them all. It wasn't a question. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd probably been watching me through my window, seeing me arrange them like shrines, reading those cards until I'd memorized every word. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Because you exist in a world that treats you like you don't. Because you deserve to know you're seen. He leaned forward slightly, and I could smell him. Expensive cologne, something dark and woody. Underneath it, the faint scent of gunpowder that made my hindbrain scream danger. Because from the moment I saw you, 3 months ago, carrying groceries in the rain because you couldn't afford a taxi, I haven't been able to stop seeing you. My hands were shaking. You don't know me. I know everything about you, Arya. His voice dropped lower, intimate, despite the public setting. I know you grew up in foster care. I know you put yourself through community college. I know you send money to your younger foster sister every month, even though you can barely feed yourself. I know you're afraid of dogs because of what happened when you were 7. I know you read romance novels on the bus and listen to jazz when you cook. He paused, his gaze intensifying. I know you're alone and brilliant and stronger than you believe, and that every man who's ever overlooked you is a fool. I couldn't breathe. The air felt too thick, the room too small, and his attention was suffocating and intoxicating all at once. This is insane, I whispered. Yes, he agreed simply. It is. I should leave. You should. But his eyes held mine, and I knew, the way prey knows, that running wouldn't matter. He'd already decided. Already claimed me in whatever dark corner of his mind he made such decisions. Arya! The manager's voice broke the spell, shrill with panic. You need to finish your shift. She's done for tonight, Dante interrupted, not looking away from me. In fact, she's done here entirely. She works for me now. The words hit me like cold water. What? No, I don't. Triple your current salary, half the hours, health insurance, dental, a safe place to live. He rattled off the terms like he was negotiating a business deal, not dismantling my entire life. You'll work as my personal assistant. Light duties. Mostly, you'll be available when I need you. When I need you. The words carried implications I wasn't naive enough to miss. And if I say no, something dangerous flashed through his expression, gone so quickly I might have imagined it. You won't. You're very confident. I'm very patient. He stood, buttoning his jacket, and his men immediately flanked him, ready to move. But Arya? I'm also very determined. The flowers will continue, every day, until you accept that you're mine to protect. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card, thick, expensive paper with gold lettering. My private number. When you're ready to stop pretending you don't feel this too, call me. He walked away, his entourage following, and the restaurant seemed to exhale collectively. I sat there, alone at the table, my bandaged hand throbbing, his card burning against my palm. The manager appeared, his face red. You're fired. Pack your things and leave. I didn't argue. Didn't cry. I just walked to the back, grabbed my coat and my purse, and stepped out into the cold night air. The card felt heavy in my pocket. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. My driver will take you home. Black Mercedes. Don't argue. I looked up. The car was already there, parked at the curb, and through the tinted window, I could just make out a figure waiting. I should have walked away. Should have taken the bus, gone home, blocked the number, reported this whole insane situation to someone. Anyone. Instead, I got in the car. The leather seats were warm. Classical music played softly through the speakers. And on the seat beside me, another bouquet. Midnight blue roses that shouldn't exist, with a card that read, "Welcome home." The driver didn't speak during the entire ride, and I was grateful for the silence. My mind was a war zone, logic screaming at me to jump out at the next red light, survival instincts cataloging every possible danger, while some deeper, more primitive part of me hummed with satisfaction at being seen, chosen, claimed by someone who made the world bend around him. We didn't go to my apartment. I realized it after 15 minutes, when we passed the turn for my neighborhood, and continued into a part of the city I'd only seen from bus windows, where buildings scraped the sky and doormen wore uniforms nicer than my entire wardrobe. My pulse quickened, but I didn't protest. What would be the point? Dante Moretti had made his intentions clear, and something told me that resistance would only intrigue him further. The car pulled up to a high-rise that looked like it cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The driver opened my door with practiced efficiency, and I stepped out onto the sidewalk, clutching the impossible blue roses against my chest like armor. "Penthouse," the driver said, the first words he'd spoken. "Mr. Moretti is expecting you." Of course he was. The lobby was all marble and gold, with a security desk manned by 2 guards who nodded at me like they'd been briefed on my arrival. The elevator required a key card, which the driver provided, and then I was ascending, my stomach dropping as the numbers climbed. 20 floors, 30, 40, until finally stopping at the top. The doors opened directly into an apartment that stole my breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the entire city, a glittering sprawl of lights that made me feel like I was floating above reality. The space was masculine and expensive. Dark wood, leather furniture, abstract art that probably cost more than my entire life, but it was also lived in, not a showroom. Books stacked on tables, a half-empty glass of whiskey on the bar, a suit jacket draped over a chair. And Dante, standing at the windows with his back to me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He must have heard the elevator, but he didn't turn. Just continued his conversation, something about shipments and percentages and names I didn't recognize, while I stood there like an idiot, still holding the roses, not sure if I should announce myself or run. "Si, capisco. Gesticelo." "Yes, I understand. Handle it." He ended the call and finally turned, those dark eyes finding me immediately. "You came. You didn't exactly give me a choice." "You always have a choice, Kara." He moved toward me, and I noticed he'd removed his tie, unbuttoned the top of his shirt, and somehow looked even more dangerous in his casual state. "You could have gotten out of the car at any stoplight. You could have refused to come up, but you're here. Because you're clearly insane and I don't want to end up in the river." A smile ghosted across his mouth. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be gone. I want something else entirely." My heart hammered against my ribs. "What?" "Everything." The word was simple, absolute. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body, smell that intoxicating mixture of expensive cologne and danger. "Your time, your attention, Your presence in my life. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movements like I was a wild animal that might bolt, and took the roses from my arms, setting them on the nearby table. I want to know what makes you laugh, what keeps you awake at night, what you dream about when you finally sleep. Why me? My voice came out smaller than I intended. You could have anyone. I gestured vaguely at him, at this apartment, at the obvious wealth and power that surrounded him like an aura. Why would you want someone like me? Someone like you, he repeated, something dangerous flickering through his expression. You mean someone real? Someone who exists in the actual world instead of the artificial one I usually inhabit? He lifted his hand to my face, and I should have pulled away, but I was frozen, mesmerized, as his fingers traced my cheekbone with devastating gentleness. Do you know what my life is, Arya? Meetings with men who would kill me for a percentage point. Dinners with women who see dollar signs instead of a person. Every conversation is strategy. Every relationship is transaction. And then I see you, exhausted, working yourself to death, still managing to smile at an elderly couple struggling with the menu. Genuine, unguarded, alive. His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and I forgot how to breathe. I've spent 3 months watching you, he continued, his voice dropping to something almost reverent, trying to convince myself this fascination would fade, that you were just another pretty face, another passing interest. But it didn't fade. It grew. Until I couldn't focus on business without wondering if you'd eaten that day, couldn't sleep without knowing you'd gotten home safely, couldn't exist without making sure you knew you were seen. That's not normal, I whispered. No, he agreed, it's not. It's obsession. And I stopped fighting it the day I realized I'd burn down the entire city if it meant keeping you safe. I should have been terrified. Should have recognized the red flags waving so violently they could have been visible from space. But standing there, with his hand cradling my face like I was something precious, I felt something else entirely. Wanted. For the first time in my invisible life, someone saw me. Really saw me. And wanted everything I was. I can't be what you need, I said, even as my traitorous body leaned into his touch. I don't know how to exist in your world. I don't know the rules, the games people play. Good. His other hand came up, framing my face, tilting my head back so I had no choice but to meet his eyes. I don't want someone who knows the games. I want you. Exactly as you are. The girl who keeps dyeing flowers on her windowsill because throwing them away feels like betrayal, who reads romance novels and believes in happy endings even though life has given you every reason not to. Who's so fucking strong she doesn't even realize she's been surviving a war. Tears burned my eyes, and I blinked them back furiously. You don't know me. Then let me learn. His forehead touched mine, and the intimacy of it was almost more than I could bear. Stay tonight. Just tonight. Let me feed you. Let me show you that not everyone in the world wants to take from you. And tomorrow, if you want to leave, I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go. And if I want to leave now, then I'll call him immediately. But his hands didn't drop, and his eyes held mine with an intensity that made lying impossible. But I'm asking you, begging you, to give me this one night. Let me prove I'm more than the monster you think I am. I knew I should run. Knew this was dangerous, reckless, potentially catastrophic. But I was so tired of being invisible, so tired of surviving instead of living, and the way he looked at me made me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. One night, I heard myself say. The smile that transformed his face was devastating. One night, he agreed, and pressed a kiss to my forehead so gentle it made my chest ache. He fed me like it was his purpose in life. The kitchen was professional grade, all stainless steel and expensive appliances, and he moved through it with surprising competence, cooking pasta from scratch while I sat at the island, watching him with a mixture of disbelief and fascination. He'd rolled up his sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and scattered with scars that told stories I wasn't sure I wanted to know. My grandmother taught me, he said, catching my stare. She believed that any man who couldn't feed himself, and the people he cared about, was worthless. He added butter to the pan, the smell making my mouth water. She was the only person who ever looked at me and saw something worth saving. Where is she now? Dead. 10 years. He said it matter-of-factly, but something in his eyes went distant. Lung cancer. I was 22, still trying to prove myself to my father's organization. She made me promise at the end that I wouldn't let this life turn me into stone. He plated the pasta with practiced ease. Cacio e pepe. Simple and perfect. I'm not sure I've kept that promise. He set the plate in front of me, along with a glass of wine that probably cost more than my former weekly paycheck, and watched as I took the first bite. The flavors exploded across my tongue. Cheese and pepper and butter creating something close to transcendent. Oh my God, I breathed. Satisfaction flickered across his face. When's the last time you ate a real meal? I couldn't remember. Days, maybe. I'd been surviving on vending machine snacks and coffee, sending most of my paycheck to my foster sister's college fund, telling myself I'd eat properly when I could afford it. That's what I thought. He leaned against the counter, watching me eat with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but somehow wasn't. You take care of everyone except yourself. Your sister, your co-workers, even the stray cat outside your building that you feed every morning. You really have been watching me. I told you, I'm obsessed. He said it without shame, like obsession was a reasonable response to attraction. I know you're terrified of me, of this, of what I represent. But Arya, I need you to understand something. He moved closer, bracing his hands on either side of me, caging me against the island. I'm a dangerous man. I've done things that would make you run screaming. But with you, I want to be gentle. I want to be worthy of the way you look at the world, like it might still hold something good. My breath caught. I don't look at the world like that. Yes, you do. You just don't realize it. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. You exist in darkness, but refuse to become dark. That's not weakness, Kara. That's strength beyond anything I've ever possessed. You give me too much credit. You don't give yourself enough. He pulled back, giving me space, and I immediately missed his proximity, which terrified me more than anything else that had happened tonight. Finish eating. Then I'll show you where you'll sleep. I expected him to lead me to his bedroom, to proposition me with the blunt entitlement that men in his position usually possessed. Instead, he took me to a guest room that looked like something from a luxury hotel. Enormous bed with soft white linens, an ensuite bathroom with heated floors, a view of the city that made me feel like I was dreaming. Everything you need is in the closet and bathroom, he said, standing in the doorway like he was afraid to enter, afraid his presence would contaminate the space. Clothes in your size, toiletries, whatever you want. The door locks from the inside if it makes you feel safer. I turned to him, confused. You're not? No, his jaw tightened. I told you I wanted everything and I meant it. But I'm not taking anything you're not ready to give. This is your space, your choice. Always. Something in my chest cracked open. I don't understand you. I know. He gave me a sad smile. Most people don't. But you will, eventually, if you let me show you. He started to leave, then paused. Arya, the flowers tomorrow will be orchids. Your favorites. Even though you've never told anyone, I notice things. Remember that. He closed the door quietly, and I stood there in the silent luxury, my mind reeling. I should have locked the door. Should have called someone, though who would I call? I had no family, few friends, no one who would understand or believe what was happening. Instead, I showered in the bathroom that was bigger than my entire apartment, dressed in the silk pajamas I found in the closet. Perfectly my size, just as he'd promised, and climbed into the bed that felt like sleeping on clouds. And I thought about a man who'd spent 3 months watching me, learning me, caring about me in a way that was both terrifying and intoxicating. Sleep came easier than it had in years. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to cover and the smell of coffee. For a moment, I was disoriented. The bed too soft, the sheets too expensive, the silence too complete. Then memory crashed back, and I sat up, heart racing. The clock on the nightstand read 9:30. I'd slept for almost 10 hours. I never slept for 10 hours. I found clothes laid out on the chair, Jeans and a sweater, both new, both exactly my style and size. It should have creeped me out, this evidence of how thoroughly he'd researched me. But instead, I felt cared for in a way that made my throat tight. I dressed quickly and emerged from the room to find Dante at the dining table, laptop open, phone pressed to his ear, looking every inch the powerful businessman in a navy suit. 2 of his men stood near the elevator, silent sentinels. And I remembered suddenly that this wasn't a fantasy. This was real, dangerous, complicated. He saw me and immediately ended his call. "Coffee? Please." He poured it himself, not asking how I took it, just preparing it exactly right. 2 sugars and a splash of cream, and handed me the cup. Our fingers brushed, and electricity shot through my system. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Better than I have in months." It felt like an admission, a surrender of some kind. "Good." He gestured to the table, where breakfast was laid out. Pastries, fruit, eggs, more food than I could eat in a week. "Eat. Then we need to talk about your living situation." I froze, cup halfway to my lips. "What about it?" "It's not safe." He said it calmly, like we were discussing the weather. "Your building has no security. The locks are a joke. And that neighborhood..." His jaw clenched. "You're not going back there." "Excuse me?" "I've already had your things moved. They're in storage until you decide where you want to live. I have several properties available, or I can arrange for you to..." "You moved my things?" My voice came out sharp, cutting. "Without asking me?" His eyes flickered with something, surprise maybe, that I was pushing back. "For your safety. That's not your decision to make." I set the coffee down harder than necessary, fury overriding my fear. "You can't just reorganize my entire life because you've decided I need saving. I can when your life is at risk." "From what?" I stood, facing him across the table. "What exactly am I in danger from?" "Because the only person who's been stalking me, controlling me, making decisions for me without consent, is you." Silence fell like a blade. His men shifted uncomfortably, and Dante's expression went very still, very cold. This was the Mafia boss, I realized. Not the gentleman who'd cooked me dinner, but the one who commanded fear. "Sit down, Arya." "No." "Sit down." His voice dropped to something deadly quiet, and I watched his control fracture, revealing the violence beneath. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. The moment you accepted my flowers, the moment you got in my car, you became mine. And I protect what's mine, by any means necessary. I'm not yours." But my voice shook, betraying me. He moved around the table with predatory grace, and I held my ground even though everything in me screamed to run. "Yes," he said softly, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. "You are. You became mine the moment I decided you were. And that's not arrogance, Kara. That's fact. In my world, I don't ask permission. I take what I want and I eliminate anything that threatens it. Then I'm leaving." I moved toward the elevator, but his hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not painfully, but immovably. "You're not." His thumb pressed against my racing pulse. "Because you know, deep down, that I'm the only thing standing between you and a world that would destroy you. You've been barely surviving, one catastrophe away from homelessness, and you're too proud to admit you need help, so I'm giving it to you, whether you want it or not." Tears burned my eyes, tears of fury and frustration, and the horrible realization that he was right. I had been drowning, slowly, for years, pretending I was fine when I was falling apart. And he'd seen it, seen through my carefully constructed facade to the desperation underneath. "I hate you," I whispered. "I know." He released my wrist, but his eyes held mine. "Hate me if you need to, but you're staying, you're safe, and eventually you'll realize I'm not your enemy. Then what are you?" His smile was terrifying in its gentleness. "Your future." The elevator chimed, someone arriving, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Dante's men immediately moved, hands inside their jackets, positioning themselves between us and whoever was coming up. The doors opened, and a woman stepped out. Beautiful, polished, expensive. Everything I wasn't. She wore a designer dress that probably cost more than a car, her dark hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. And the way she looked at Dante, possessive, familiar, furious, told me everything I needed to know. "So it's true," she said, her voice dripping venom. The great Dante Moretti, obsessed with some nobody waitress. Dante's entire body went rigid. "Get out, Isabella." "I don't think so." She sauntered further into the apartment, her eyes raking over me with undisguised contempt. "I want to see what's so special about her. What made you break our arrangement?" "We had no arrangement, didn't we?" She smiled, cruel and sharp. 2 years, Dante. 2 years of understanding. And you throw it away for this? I felt small, dirty, completely out of my depth. This was his world. Beautiful, vicious people who spoke in codes I didn't understand. Playing games with stakes I couldn't fathom. "Arya," Dante said quietly, not looking away from Isabella. "Go back to your room." "No." The word surprised me as much as it did him. I was tired of being dismissed, invisible, treated like I didn't matter. "I'm not hiding from her." Isabella laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Oh, she has some fire. How delightful. Tell me, little waitress, do you have any idea what you've gotten yourself into? What world you've stumbled into?" "Isabella." Dante's voice carried a warning that made even his men tense. "Leave. Now. Before I do something we'll both regret. You won't hurt me. My father." "Your father," Dante interrupted, taking a step toward her that made her flinch despite her bravado, "doesn't control me. No one does. And if you ever threaten or disrespect Arya again, your father will be attending your funeral. Am I clear?" The air crackled with violence barely contained. Isabella's mask slipped, revealing genuine fear underneath her venom, and she took a step back. "This isn't over," she hissed. "She's going to get you killed, Dante. Mark my words." She left, the elevator doors closing behind her, and the silence that remained felt heavy, ominous. Dante turned to me, and his expression was anguished. "I'm sorry you had to see that. Who was she?" "Someone from my past. Someone I should have dealt with more firmly." He ran a hand through his hair, the first sign of agitation I'd seen. "She's right about one thing, though. Being close to me puts you in danger. Every enemy I have will see you as a target, a weakness to exploit. Then let me go." But the words felt hollow, and we both knew it. "I can't." He closed the distance between us, his hands framing my face with devastating tenderness. "I physically cannot let you go, Arya. You've become essential, the air I breathe, and I will burn down anyone who tries to harm you." I stared into his dark eyes and saw the truth there. This wasn't romantic hyperbole. He meant every word. He would kill for me. Had probably already arranged protection I didn't even know about. "You're insane," I whispered. "Yes." He pressed his forehead to mine. "But I'm your insane, and you're never going to be invisible again." 3 days passed in a blur of luxury and captivity. I didn't go back to my apartment. Couldn't, since Dante had been serious about moving my things. He showed me the storage unit with all my meager possessions carefully packed and labeled, like my entire life could fit into a 10 by 10 space. The reality of it made something in my chest constrict. He gave me space during the days, disappearing for hours into meetings I wasn't privy to, phone calls conducted in rapid Italian that I couldn't understand. But every evening, he returned, bringing dinner or cooking it himself, asking about my day even though we both knew I'd spent it in his penthouse, reading books from his extensive library, or staring out at the city that felt increasingly like a gilded cage. The flowers continued. Every morning, a new bouquet appeared. Orchids, as he'd promised, then tulips, then rare blooms I couldn't even name. Each card unsigned, but the messages grew bolder. "You looked beautiful sleeping. I checked on you last night. Your sister called. I paid her tuition. Don't argue. I'm trying to be patient. It's not my strength." That last one arrived on the 4th morning, and I stared at it for a long time, my hands trembling. The casual admission that he'd entered my room while I slept should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something darker, a twisted satisfaction that his control was fraying, that I affected him as much as he affected me. I was losing myself in this, losing the girl who'd been independent and strong and determined to survive on her own terms. Being cared for was addictive, seductive, and every day I felt myself slipping further into dependence on a man who terrified and fascinated me in equal measure. "You're thinking too loud," Dante said from behind me. I jumped. He'd come in without my noticing, dressed in black slacks and a white shirt rolled to his elbows, looking less like a mobster and more like some dark angel. His hair was still damp from a shower, and I caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something clean and masculine. "You paid my sister's tuition," I said, turning to face him. "That's over $40,000. I'm aware." "You can't just—" "I can. I did." He moved to the bar, pouring himself a drink even though it was barely noon. "She's brilliant, according to her professors. Full scholarship potential if she maintains her GPA. Now she can focus on studying instead of working 3 jobs like her sister did." The casual way he said it, like dismantling my carefully constructed objections, was nothing. Made my throat tight. "Why?" "Because you would have bankrupted yourself to give her opportunities you never had." "Because she matters to you, which means she matters to me." He took a slow sip of whiskey, his dark eyes never leaving my face. "And because I want you to understand something, Arya. I don't do anything halfway. When I commit to something, to someone, I'm all in. Completely. Obsessively. This isn't normal." "No," he agreed. "It's not. But nothing about us is normal, Kara. Normal men would have let you remain invisible. I saw you and decided I'd rather watch the world burn than lose you." My pulse quickened. "I need to leave. I need my own space, my own life." "You have your own space. This entire floor can be yours if you want it." He set down his glass with controlled precision. "But you're not leaving. Not until you're ready to admit what's happening between us. Nothing is happening between us." He closed the distance between us in 3 strides, and suddenly I was backed against the window, the cool glass pressing into my spine, his body radiating heat inches from mine. "Liar," he breathed. "Your pulse races every time I'm near. Your pupils dilate when you look at me. You dream about me. I can tell by the way you look at me in the mornings. Confused and wanting and angry with yourself. That's not—" But my voice failed, because he was right. God help me, he was right. "I could kiss you right now," he continued, his hand coming up to brace against the window beside my head, caging me in. "Could show you exactly what you do to me, how much restraint it takes not to claim every inch of you. But I won't. Not until you ask me to. Not until you admit you want this too." "I don't." His smile was knowing, devastating. "Then why are you still here?" The question hung between us, unanswerable. Because he was right. I could have demanded to leave, could have called the police, could have done 100 things to escape. But I hadn't. Because some broken part of me craved this attention, this obsession, this feeling of mattering to someone. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He stepped back, jaw clenching as he read the message. Whatever it said made his expression go cold, dangerous. "I have to go," he said. "Business that can't wait. Luca will be outside your door. Don't leave the building. Dante, please." The word sounded foreign coming from him, like he rarely used it. "I need to know you're safe, just for today. Stay here." Then he was gone, and I was alone with the flowers and the city view, and the growing realization that I was falling for my captor. Evening came, and Dante didn't return. I tried not to worry, tried to convince myself it wasn't my concern, but my mind conjured terrible scenarios. Shootouts, betrayals, all the violence his world entailed. Luca remained posted outside, silent and intimidating, and I paced the apartment like a caged animal. At midnight, the elevator chimed. I rushed toward it, expecting Dante, but instead found a man I didn't recognize. Older, expensive suit, cold eyes that swept over me with calculating interest. Behind him, 2 more men. And the way Luca tensed told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a friend. "So you're the girl," the man said, his accent thicker than Dante's, "the one causing such disruption. I expected someone more. Who are you?" I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Antonio Moretti, Dante's father." He smiled, and it was nothing like his son's. This was cruelty wrapped in charm. We need to talk about your relationship with my son. There is no relationship. Don't insult my intelligence. He moved into the apartment like he owned it, which I realized he probably did in some legal sense. My son has been distracted, unfocused, making decisions based on emotion rather than strategy, all because of you. Luca had followed them in, his hand visibly inside his jacket now. The tension was suffocating. That's not my fault, I said. Isn't it? Antonio poured himself a drink without asking, making himself comfortable. You exist. You catch his attention. You accept his gifts. You stay in his home. And now his enemies circle, seeing weakness, seeing opportunity. Then I'll leave. I'll disappear. Just let me. Too late for that. He turned to face me fully. You've already been marked. Isabella's family knows about you. The Russians know, the Colombians. Everyone who wants Dante vulnerable now knows exactly how to hurt him. Through you. Ice flooded my veins. What do you want? I want you gone. Permanently. I want you to take the money I'm offering, more than you'd earn in 10 lifetimes, and disappear. Change your name. Leave the country. Never contact my son again. The elevator chimed again, and this time it was Dante, his suit jacket gone, his shirt stained with something dark that might have been blood. His eyes swept the room, landing on his father with an expression of pure fury. Get away from her. Dante. Antonio's voice carried disappointment. We're just talking. You're threatening her, in my home. Dante moved to stand between us, a wall of protective rage. Leave. Now, before I forget you're my father. She's making you weak. She's making me human. Dante's hand found mine, pulling me close against his side. Something you never understood. Now get out. The two men stared at each other, years of history and violence crackling between them. Finally, Antonio shrugged. You'll regret this. When they come for her, and they will, you'll wish you'd listened to me. He left, taking his men with him, and the silence that remained felt apocalyptic. Dante turned to me, his hands framing my face, his eyes searching mine with desperate intensity. Did he hurt you? Touch you? I'll kill him. I'm fine. But I was shaking, the reality of the danger finally crystallizing. He offered me money to disappear. Something flickered through Dante's expression. Fear, I realized. Actual fear. Are you going to take it? I should have said yes. Should have taken the escape offered, the chance at a normal life, but looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability he rarely showed, I knew the truth. I was already too deep, too attached, too far gone. No, I whispered. The relief that washed over his face was devastating. He pulled me against him, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe, his face buried in my hair. Thank God, he breathed. Thank God, because I don't know what I would have done if you'd said yes. I think I would have. He pulled back, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. I'm going to protect you, whatever it takes. Whoever tries to hurt you will cease to exist. I promise you that. Your father is wrong. You don't make me weak. You make me something worth being. His forehead touched mine. I've been a monster for so long, Arya. Doing terrible things for power, for control, for a family legacy I never wanted. But when I look at you, I remember what it feels like to be human, to care about something more than survival. I'm scared, I admitted. Good. Fear will keep you alive. His hands slid down to grip my shoulders. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Can you trust that I will move heaven and earth to keep you safe? I looked into his dark eyes and saw sincerity there, desperation, and something that looked dangerously close to love. Yes, I said, and felt something inside me surrender completely. He kissed me then. Finally, desperately, like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. His lips claimed mine with barely controlled violence, all the restraint he'd been showing shattering, and I kissed him back with equal fervor, 3 days of tension exploding between us. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes had gone nearly black with desire. Mine, he whispered against my lips. Say it. Yours, I breathed back, and sealed my fate. Everything changed after that kiss. Dante became simultaneously more possessive and more tender, like claiming me verbally had unleashed something he'd been restraining. He moved me into his bedroom that same night, not asking, simply carrying my things from the guest room while I watched, too exhausted by emotion to protest. "I need you close," he said when I questioned it, "where I can protect you." The bed was enormous, the sheets expensive beyond reason, and that first night I lay awake for hours, hyper-aware of his presence beside me. He didn't touch me beyond pulling me against his chest, his arm heavy across my waist, his breath warm against my neck. "Sleep, Kara," he murmured. "You're safe, I promise," and somehow, impossibly, I believed him. The next week unfolded like a fever dream. Dante took me to places I'd only seen in magazines, restaurants where meals cost more than my former monthly rent, theaters with private boxes, art galleries that stayed open late just for us. His men followed everywhere, silent shadows that reminded me constantly of the danger lurking beneath the surface. But it was the quiet moments that undid me. Him cooking breakfast while I sat on the counter, stealing bites of pancakes, reading together in comfortable silence, his hand absently stroking my hair. The way he'd call me in the middle of meetings, just to hear my voice, to make sure I was okay. "You've become my religion," he told me one night, his fingers tracing patterns on my bare shoulder as we lay in bed. "The only thing I pray to, the only thing I worship. That's blasphemous. I'm already damned, Arya. Might as well be damned for something beautiful." My sister called, crying with gratitude about the tuition, and I had to excuse myself to the bathroom before she heard me break down. Dante found me there, sitting on the floor with tears streaming down my face, and simply held me until I could breathe again. "She's going to finish college," I sobbed against his chest. "She's going to have the life I never could." "You're going to have a life too," he promised. "Whatever you want, college, career, anything, I'll make it happen. I don't know what I want, then we'll figure it out together." But the peace was fragile, temporary. I knew it even as I pretended otherwise. The attack came on a Thursday. Dante had left for a meeting reluctantly, only after I'd assured him I'd stay inside with Luca posted outside. I spent the morning reading, then wandered to the kitchen for lunch, feeling restless and caged. The explosion shattered the front windows. Glass erupted inward, a wave of destruction that sent me diving behind the counter, arms covering my head, ears ringing from the blast. Smoke filled the apartment, acrid and choking, and through it I heard shouting, gunfire, the sounds of violence I'd only experienced in movies. "Arya!" Luca's voice, desperate. "Get to the panic room, now!" But I couldn't move, couldn't think through the terror flooding my system. Footsteps thundered across the broken glass, and then hands grabbed me, not Luca's, someone else's, rough and brutal. "Got her!" a voice shouted in accented English. "Move!" I screamed, fighting, but he was too strong, dragging me toward the shattered windows. I caught a glimpse of Luca on the floor, blood pooling beneath him, his eyes open and unseeing, and horror choked off my voice. They killed him. They killed him because of me. The man hauling me toward the window spoke rapidly into a radio. "Package secured. Extraction in 30 seconds. Package." They were kidnapping me, taking me to use against Dante, to hurt him, to destroy him through me. Antonio's warnings echoed in my head. When they come for her, and they will, and I realized with crystalline clarity that I was about to die, or worse. Then the elevator chimed. Everything happened in slow motion. The doors opened, and Dante emerged with 4 of his men, all armed, all moving with military precision. His eyes found me immediately, and the expression on his face was nothing human, pure rage, pure violence, the monster he'd been hiding finally unleashed. "Let her go," he said, his voice deadly calm. The man holding me pressed a gun to my head. "Back off, Moretti, or I paint the walls with her brain." Dante's men fanned out, weapons raised, but Dante himself just smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing I'd ever seen. Cold, empty, promising death. "You made a mistake coming here," Dante said conversationally, touching her. "You understand that, right? That you just signed your own death warrant?" Big talk for a man who's outnumbered. Am I? Dante tilted his head slightly, and suddenly the apartment was full of his men, emerging from rooms, from shadows, from places I hadn't known existed. At least 15 armed soldiers, all pointing weapons at my captor. The man's grip on me tightened, panic evident now. I'll kill her. No, Dante said softly. You won't, because the second you pull that trigger, my men will cut you down, and before you die, you'll watch me execute every person you've ever loved. Your wife. Your children. Your parents. Everyone. I'll burn your entire bloodline from existence, and your last thought will be that you caused it by touching what's mine. The silence was absolute. My captor's hand trembled against my head, the gun shaking, his breathing ragged. Who sent you? Dante continued. Tell me, and I'll make your death quick. Stay silent and I'll keep you alive for days, weeks. I'll introduce you to pain you can't even imagine. Isabella, the man choked out. Isabella Caruso. She paid us to take the girl, too. His voice broke. Please, I have kids. You should have thought of that before you took mine. Dante moved then, faster than I could track, yanking me away from my captor and putting his own body between us. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, and I screamed as my captor dropped, a bullet hole between his eyes. Dante's men swarmed, securing the area, checking bodies, speaking in rapid Italian. But Dante only had eyes for me, his hands frantically running over my body, checking for injuries, his face drained of color. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? I'll kill them all. I'm okay. I managed, though I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Luca, I know. His jaw clenched. He died protecting you. He'll be honored for that. The casual way he said it, like death was just another transaction, made something in me crack. This is because of me. He died because of me. No. Dante gripped my face, forcing me to look at him. He died because my enemies are cowards who target the innocent. This is on them, not you. Never you. But I could see Luca's body from where we stood, could see the blood spreading across expensive marble, and I knew the truth. This was my life now. Violence and death and constant fear. This was what loving Dante meant. I can't do this, I whispered. Something flickered through his eyes, devastation, quickly hidden. Yes, you can. You're stronger than... No. I pulled away from him, wrapping my arms around myself. I can't live like this, knowing people are dying because of me. That I'm a target, a weakness. I can't... Then I'll end it. His voice went flat, emotionless. Isabella, her family, everyone who poses a threat. I'll eliminate them all. Burn their organizations to ash. Whatever it takes to keep you safe. More killing won't solve this. It's the only language my world understands. He raked a hand through his hair, frustration and fear warring on his face. What do you want me to do, Arya? Let you go? Watch you walk away and spend every second terrified someone will hurt you to get to me? I can't. I physically cannot let you leave knowing you're in danger. So what am I? Your prisoner? My everything. He closed the distance between us, his hands gentle despite the violence still crackling in the air around us. My reason for breathing, my purpose. And if keeping you alive means becoming more of a monster, then that's what I'll be. Sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire, drawn by the explosion. Dante's men moved efficiently, already cleaning up, already making the evidence disappear. This was their routine, I realized. Violence and death and covering it up, over and over, an endless cycle. I need time, I said. I need to think. You can have time. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But you're not leaving. Not when people want you dead. That's non-negotiable. One of his men approached, speaking quietly in Italian. Dante's expression darkened, and he responded in kind, his voice sharp with command. Then he turned back to me. We're leaving. This place is compromised. I'm taking you somewhere safer. Where? My family's estate, outside the city. It's a fortress. Guards, surveillance, no way anyone gets close without us knowing. He was already moving, pulling me toward the elevator, his men forming a protective circle around us. You'll hate it. It's isolated and old-fashioned, and you'll feel trapped, but you'll be alive. The elevator descended, and I watched the floors tick by, each number taking me further from any semblance of normal life. Dante held my hand the entire time, his grip almost painful. Like if he let go, I'd disappear. Outside, 3 black SUVs waited, engines running. He put me in the middle vehicle, sliding in beside me, while his men took positions in the other cars. The convoy moved through the city at dangerous speeds, running red lights, taking corners fast enough to make my stomach lurch. "Isabella will pay for this," Dante said into his phone, his voice cold as death. "I want her location within the hour. And her father's. I'm making an example. No one touches what's mine and lives." He paused, listening. "I don't care about the treaty. It's void the moment she tried to kill Arya. Prepare for war." He ended the call and pulled me against his side, his arm tight around my shoulders. "I'm sorry," he murmured into my hair. "I'm sorry you're in this. I'm sorry I dragged you into my hell. But I'm not sorry for loving you. I'll never be sorry for that." The words hit me like a physical blow. Love. He'd said it, made it real. "Dante, you don't have to say it back. I know it's too soon, too complicated, too fucked up. But I need you to know. I need you to understand why I'll do anything, destroy anyone, to keep you breathing." I turned to look at him, this beautiful, broken man who'd upended my entire existence, and felt my resistance crumble. Because despite everything, the danger, the violence, the insanity of it all, I felt it too. This desperate, consuming thing that might be love or might be Stockholm Syndrome or might be both. "I'm terrified of you," I admitted. "I know. But I'm more terrified of losing you." His eyes closed, and when they opened again, they glistened with something that might have been tears. "Then don't leave. Stay with me. Let me keep you safe. Let me love you the only way I know how." The convoy pulled through massive iron gates, into grounds that looked like something from a Gothic novel. Sprawling mansion, manicured gardens, armed men patrolling. My new prison. My new home. And as Dante led me inside, his hand never leaving mine, I realized I'd already made my choice. I was his. Completely. Irrevocably. For better or worse, until death did us part. The Moretti estate was a fortress disguised as a palace. Stone walls 20 feet high, guard towers at every corner, men with automatic weapons patrolling the grounds like it was a military installation. Inside, the mansion was all dark wood and antique furniture, portraits of dead Morettis glaring down from the walls with judgment in their painted eyes. Dante took me directly to the master suite. His childhood bedroom, he explained, though it had been renovated since. The space was masculine and comfortable, with French doors opening onto a balcony that overlooked the gardens. Beautiful, if you could ignore the armed guards visible below. "Rest," he said, though his hands lingered on my shoulders like he couldn't bear to stop touching me. "I have calls to make, arrangements, but I'll be right downstairs. You're safe here, Arya. I promise." He left, and I stood at the balcony doors, watching the sun set over this gilded prison, wondering how my life had become unrecognizable in less than 2 weeks. The war started that night. I heard it through the closed doors. Dante's voice raised in fury, speaking rapid Italian punctuated by the sounds of fists hitting tables, glass shattering. Other voices joined his, arguing, pleading, but his was always loudest, always final. He was orchestrating destruction, and I was the reason. When he finally came to bed, it was past 3 in the morning. He smelled like whiskey and cigar smoke, and his knuckles were bruised. He stripped down to his boxer briefs without speaking, then climbed into bed and pulled me against him with desperate force. "It's done," he said into the darkness. "Isabella's family has 24 hours to deliver her to me. After that, I burn everything they own." "Dante, no." His arm tightened around my waist. "Don't ask me to show mercy. Not for this. Not for someone who tried to take you from me." I turned in his arms to face him, and in the moonlight streaming through the windows, I saw the exhaustion in his face, the weight of violence he carried. How many people are going to die because of this? As many as it takes. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. His hand came up to cup my face. "You want me to be different, to be better. But this is who I am, Arya. I solve problems with violence because it's the only language that works in my world, and I won't apologize for protecting you. I know. And I did. I'd stopped expecting him to be anything other than what he was, a man shaped by violence, capable of terrible things, but capable of terrible love, too. I just wish that we'd met in a different life, where I was just a man, and you were just a woman, and we could have something normal. He smiled sadly. I wish that, too. Every day. But this is the life we have, and I'm going to make damn sure you survive it. He kissed me then, slow and deep, tasting like whiskey and desperation. His hands mapped my body with reverent possession, and I let myself drown in the feeling of being wanted so completely it bordered on worship. We made love that night, finally, inevitably, and it felt like sealing a pact written in blood. Every touch was a promise, every kiss a claim, and when I finally shattered in his arms, gasping his name like a prayer, I knew there was no going back. I was his, he was mine. Nothing else mattered. The next morning, Isabella was delivered to the estate. I watched from the bedroom window as a black van pulled up, as men dragged her out, beautiful still, but terrified now, her designer clothes torn, her makeup smeared. She was screaming, fighting, but they hauled her into the main house like she weighed nothing. Dante appeared beside me, freshly showered, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt. He followed my gaze and his jaw tightened. "Stay here," he said. "What are you going to do to her? What she deserves." He started toward the door, but I grabbed his arm. "Don't kill her." He turned, surprise flickering through his expression. "She tried to have you killed. I know. And she should pay for that. But murder?" I swallowed hard. "Once you cross that line because of me, there's no coming back. Please. For me, find another way." He stared at me for a long moment, something warring in his eyes. Finally, he nodded. "For you. Only for you." He pressed a kiss to my forehead. "But she's leaving this country and never coming back. That's non-negotiable." I watched him go, then returned to the window, my hands shaking. This was my power now, the ability to stay his hand, to pull him back from the darkness. It was a terrible responsibility, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to bear it. Hours passed. Dante returned as the sun was setting, looking exhausted but satisfied. "It's done," he said, pulling me into his arms. "Isabella is on a plane to Argentina. Her family has agreed to exile her permanently. No contact with you, no retaliation, no coming back. They've also paid reparations, blood money, essentially, and dissolved their alliance with the Russians." "That's it? She just leaves?" "She leaves with nothing. No money, no protection, no family support. She'll spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, knowing that if she ever sets foot in this country again, I'll finish what I started." His hand stroked my hair. "You saved her life today, Kyra. I hope she knows that. I didn't do it for her. I know." He pulled back to look at me, his dark eyes searching mine. "You did it for me. To keep my soul intact, to keep me from becoming the complete monster my father raised me to be." His voice dropped. "You make me want to be better, Arya. And that's the most terrifying thing of all." The weeks that followed brought an uneasy peace. Dante's world was still dangerous, still violent, but the immediate threats had been neutralized. He took me to meetings sometimes, kept me at his side like a talisman, and I watched him command rooms full of dangerous men with effortless authority. But in private, he was different. Tender, almost vulnerable, like I'd seen beneath the armor to the wounded man underneath. My sister visited once, escorted by a small army of guards, and cried when she saw me. "You look different," she said, studying my face. "Happier. Scared, but happier." "I am," I admitted. And it was true. Despite everything, despite the gilded cage and the constant danger, I was happier than I'd ever been. Being seen, being loved, being essential to someone, it fed a hunger I hadn't known I carried. Dante proposed on a Tuesday, exactly 3 months after the first flowers arrived. We were in the garden, the one place on the estate that felt peaceful, and he dropped to one knee without ceremony, pulling out a ring that probably cost more than a house. "I know this is insane," he said. "I know it's too fast, too intense, too much. But I also know I don't want to spend another day pretending you're not my entire world. Marry me, Arya. Let me spend my life protecting you, worshiping you, proving every day that you made the right choice by staying." I should have hesitated, should have considered the implications, the danger, the absolute insanity of marrying into the Mafia. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, the genuine fear that I might say no, I knew my answer. Yes. The word was barely out before he was kissing me, the ring forgotten, his hands framing my face like I was something infinitely precious. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he slid the ring onto my finger. A perfect fit, because of course he'd known my size. "You're mine now," he breathed against my lips, legally, officially, irrevocably mine. "I was always yours," I replied, "from the moment you sent those first flowers." The wedding happened 2 weeks later, a small ceremony in the estate's chapel with only his most trusted men and my sister in attendance. I wore a dress he'd had custom made, white silk that made me feel like a princess in a dark fairy tale. And when the priest pronounced us husband and wife, when Dante kissed me with such reverence it made my chest ache, I knew this was my happy ending. Not the one I'd imagined as a girl, reading romance novels on the bus, but mine. Real, complicated, dangerous, perfect. 6 months later, I stood in our bedroom. We'd moved back to the penthouse, which had been completely renovated and secured, staring at the positive pregnancy test in my shaking hands. Dante found me there, frozen, tears streaming down my face. "What's wrong?" he demanded, immediately alert, searching for danger. "Are you hurt? Is someone—" I held up the test wordlessly. He stared at it, his expression unreadable. Then he dropped to his knees in front of me, his hands covering my still flat stomach, his forehead pressing against my body with something that looked like prayer. "A baby," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Our baby. Are you happy?" I asked, suddenly terrified. "I know we didn't plan. Happy?" He looked up, and his eyes were wet. "Arya, you've given me everything. A reason to be better. A purpose beyond survival. And now a family. The family I always wanted but never thought I deserved." He stood, pulling me into his arms. "I'm going to be a father. A scary one," I teased through my tears. "The scariest," he agreed, smiling. "No one will ever hurt our child. I'll make sure of it." And as I stood there, wrapped in the arms of my obsessive, dangerous, devoted husband, flowers blooming on every surface because he still sent them daily, I realized something profound. I was no longer invisible. I was seen, loved, potential. I was Arya Moretti, wife to a monster, mother to be, the woman who'd tamed a devil with nothing but her presence, and I'd never been happier. The flowers that arrived that evening were white roses, for new beginnings, the card said. And for the first time it was signed, "Forever yours, Dante." I pressed the card to my chest and smiled, looking out at the city that had once felt so vast and lonely. Now it felt small, manageable, because I had someone who would burn it all down to keep me safe. My dark fairy tale had its happy ending after all, just not the kind anyone would write in books. But it was ours. And that made it perfect.